This happened to me back when I was 15 at my overnight summer camp. My friend and I have told very few people about this, and no one knows what to make of it. We were part of a counselor and training program that put us working at different activities or cabins in order for us to learn how to be staff. During my third week, I was placed on a cabin of 12 to 13-year-olds, while a good friend of mine was placed on 8 to 9-year-olds. During my week on this cabin, one of the actual staff was fired for a bad reason, but it had to be done. Basically, he was supposed to be on night duty, and a girl got sick. And even though her counselors were in the cabin at the time, he got in trouble for not being there because he left 10 minutes early. At this time, another one of the 3 original staff had to be in the city for a family event and had a few days off. This left one counselor and myself watching 16 kids. On Saturday nights, we had staff meetings that were mandatory. My unit head and the camp director said that I could have the day off from working if I spent a night in the cabin with the kids, since the staff won't be there. I was told I could bring a friend who would also get a day off the following Monday. We would be with the kids until about 2 a.m. because the staff could sleep in the next day, and these meetings ran late. So my previously mentioned friend and I ate with the cabin, took them to the evening program, and then got them into the cabin at curfew. They didn't have to go to bed, but they had to stay in the cabin and be quiet. Before we went to bed, the older counselor in trainings at the campfire on night duty needed help starting a fire. I was pretty good at this, so I helped them build it properly. It was a very dry week, so you'd expect for the wood to catch pretty quickly, but for some reason it didn't. The lighter wouldn't even burn the kindling at the bottom. But since it was such a nice night, they decided to go without the fire. Around 11, the boys all fell asleep, which was rather unusual for boys who enjoyed staying up late. My friend and I stayed in the counselor's cube playing cards until it was time for us to get some sleep. Around midnight, it started getting very cold, but by then the counselors in training at the campfire had left. Half an hour later, we were both still awake when it started. At first, I thought that it was the wind and the trees, but then I realized it was whispers coming from the cabin. I got out of bed to go quiet down to the camper, but as I checked each camper, I realized that they were all whispering. The part that freaked me out was that they were all fast asleep. My friend came out to investigate as well, and it took us a few minutes to really hear what they were whispering. Not in unison, but in a round. They were whispering, "It's coming, it's coming, it's coming." This is when we got really scared. We tried to wake them up by dropping things so it looked like we accidentally woke them up, but nothing worked and the whispering continued. After about 5 minutes of us panicking, all the boys woke up in a cold sweat, staring at our frightened faces. We didn't want to tell them what happened, so they wouldn't be scared. We didn't sleep that night, but the boys did, and we didn't hear any more noises. The next morning, when we went for breakfast, I asked if anyone had any dreams, which I usually do to start a conversation. One boy started saying that he had a dream of something in the woods that he couldn't see, but he felt getting closer and closer to the cabin. As soon as the thing touched the door handle, he jolted awake. The table went quiet as a few other boys spoke up, saying that they had a very similar dream. There was no pearly gate. The only reason I knew I was in a cave was because I had just passed the entrance. The rock wall rose behind me with no ceiling in sight. I knew this was it. This was what religion talked about, what man feared. I had just entered the gate to hell. I felt the presence of the cave as if it was a living, breathing creature. The stench of rotten flesh overwhelmed me. Then there was the voice. It came from inside and all around.
Welcome.
Who are you? I asked, trying to keep my composure.
You know,
The thing answered. I did know. You were the devil, I stuttered, quickly losing my composure. Why me? I lived as good as I could. The silence took over the space as my words died out. It seemed like an hour went by before the response came.
what did you expect?
The voice was penetrating, but patient. I don't know. I never believed any of this, I uttered. Is that why I'm here? Silence. I continued. They say the greatest trick you ever pulled was convincing the world you don't exist.
No. The greatest trick I ever pulled was convincing the world that there is an alternative.
There is no God, I shivered. The cave trembled with the words.
I am God.
My best friend April had a weird way of seeing things, always through rose-colored glasses. She was strangely optimistic about pretty much everything, and she could genuinely talk about anything for hours on end. She was my best friend for 13 years, and we even went to high school and college together. When we were on spring break, we decided to visit family and then take our last few days to go camping up in the mountains. I told her that I would drive, but she insisted that she could drive the entire way. I decided to sleep since it was around 2 in the morning, and I only woke up a couple of times. The last thing I remember that night, one sharp jerk of the car and blaring car horns. I woke up in the grass, shards of glass stuck to my face, maybe a broken arm. I scanned the road for April, and she was just sitting in the grass, staring off into the tree line. Her mouth was open and there was blood dripping from her neck. She was looking away, her eyes focused on something in the distance. Something that I couldn't see. Her trance was broken when we heard sirens. At the hospital, April was inconsolable, with a shell-shocked look on her face and a 1,000-yard stare that could burn through mountains. Hey, are you okay? I asked. I knew we had just been through a lot, but she just looked so odd. You mean, you didn't notice? She said, looking wide-eyed. Notice what? Jim. He disappeared after the crash. Did you hit your head or something? Jim? Who's Jim? She stopped moving and looked at me angrily. You mean to tell me you forgot about your goddamn boyfriend? She shouted. What the hell are you talking about? I don't have a boyfriend, and I've never met a man named Jim. She shook her head. He was your boyfriend for 3 years. You brought him along with us. Don't you remember? I think you need your head checked. It was just me and you in the car. But you guys went to the gas station to get snacks together. He was there. I stared at her for a solid minute, and there wasn't a trace of a joke on her face. At this point, I thought she lost it. Was it from the crash? She started tearing up and holding her head, rocking back and forth, back and forth. You're telling me that I've dreamt up 3 years of memories of some guy you have no recollection of. He even spoke to me before he left. Left? Left to go where? She wrung her hands until her knuckles turned white. He got out of the car just smiling. He was smiling, goddammit. Holding his arm. It had to have been broken clean in half. There was so much blood. He walked into the grass and said that we didn't belong here anymore. Then walked into the tree line. She trailed off, tears going down her cheeks. This isn't right. He was onto something. We don't belong here. What do you mean? I sighed. That crash was meant to kill us, wipe us from existence. April, I think you need to sleep. You're not in the right mind right now. She turned, facing away from me, shaking. We don't belong here anymore. The next morning, I woke up pretty late. April was already gone. I guess she went home, and she was probably still mad at me for last night. I called April's roommate, Erin, to pick me up.